Hello, YouTube, if you're watching. Hope you're doing well. Thank you. Getting ready to start the broadcast. Brian, you can go on and roll the open anytime. That wasn't as enthusiastic as it was this afternoon. Hey, good evening, everybody. It is Dave McKenzie along with Scott Hudson as we are back at Pinckneyville, at Pinckneyville High School, Scott, for the beginning of our second game of the evening in the Duster Thomas Hoops Classic. Carterville earlier today knocked off by the Wesleyan Warriors. 44-26 was the final, and in a game, Scott, that Carterville had their opportunities to, and they hung right in there through 3.5 quarters.
Yeah, and I said earlier after the broadcast that I thought Carterville lost the game in the first half when they shot so poorly. They shot poorly for the game, but Wesleyan was not tearing it up offensively in the first half either, and that's where Carterville missed their opportunity to score. But the good thing about it is you don't have 24 hours or even a week to mull over that loss. You just had a couple of hours literally to get ready for Trico. So hopefully Carterville kids have that loss out of their mind and ready to play a Trico team that I know they don't play the same type of competition as Carterville, but they do have 4 wins on the season, so that's you can't take these guys lightly.
We'll break down that first game here in just a few minutes. This Lions broadcast is brought to you by the Bank of Carbondale's Carterville Banking Center. The Bank of Carbondale, they now have an online mortgage center where you can check rates or apply for a mortgage anytime. For more information on the Bank of Carbondale's online mortgage center, visit the website at tboc.com. Member FDIC, equal housing lender, and all loans are subject to credit approval. NMLS registration number 742871. We are going to go on and take our first break. When we come back, Scott and I will look back at the first game today as the Carterville Lions were beat by the Wesleyan Warriors. We'll break that down. It's coming up. It is your Carterville Banking Center pregame show here on News Radio WJPF. Steve McKenzie with Scott Hudson as we are ready for Game 2 at the Duster Thomas Hoops Classic on a Friday. Carterville preparing to take on the Trico Pioneers, but it was the afternoon game, Scott, that Carterville wound up losing 44-26 to Westland, and really it was just a matter of poor shooting by the Carterville Lions.
Yeah, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Carterville did very well on defense. Their zone gave Westland problems, especially in the first half. You know, the two things you can look at from that game in a negative light is, as you mentioned, the shooting, and in the first half not doing a very good job of boxing off on the defensive boards and allowing Westland to get a lot of offensive rebounds that they ended up turning into points. Now, a couple of hours later, you play a Trico team that, like I said, has 4 wins on the season. And remember this, they also lost to Westland, but they scored 43 points against Westland, where Carterville only scored 26. And if my math is correct, over the last 2 games against Westland and Nashville last week, Carterville is 17 out of 69 from the field, and that's not going to win many, if any, ball games.
We talked about it in the first game today. I wish we would keep track of stats. Points in the paint within 5 feet, because that has just been killer for Carterville, with one exception, and that was the one win Carterville had against West Frankfort. Luke Ford winds up with 22 points in that game. Justin Johnson had 11 in that game, but everything in the paint went in, and now it seems like nothing in the paint falls for the Lions, and that has just been a killer. In the first game today, they shot 23% from the field.
Now, you're not going to win any games against anybody. And I don't care if you're playing Westland, you're playing Trico, or you're playing a grade school team, you're not going to win a lot of games, if any, when you shoot that poorly. Now, the one thing about it, talking to Coach Hawkins after that first game, and I agreed with him, Carterville only took one bad shot the entire game. So it's not like they're forcing up threes, that they're forcing up shots when they're being double-teamed. These are good looks at the basket that just aren't going in. And, you know, I don't know what you do. I mean, I think a lot of it now for Carterville is mental.
I agree.
I think it's a mental issue that they've got to break that barrier somehow. And I think the best way to start to break that barrier.
They've had stretches where they played really well. The first 3 quarters, I was happy with that game. They were within 6-8 points of Westland. You know, Westland came into the game. I can't remember. They
only had one loss, and that was to a very good Salem team.
And so you know, Carterville was right there, but in the end, you have to hit the shots in the paint. You can't give up possessions, and the Lions did that. We're going to go on and take another break. When we come back, we'll continue here at the Duster Thomas Hoops Classic at Pinckneyville High School on NewsRadio WJPF. Brian, it looks like we're going to have an anthem on this one. I Back at Pinckneyville High School, Dave McKenzie along with Scott Hudson, where we're about 4.5 minutes away from the tip-off here at the Dester Thomas Hoops Classic. Carterville preparing to take on this Trico team that this morning they took on Westland and got beat, as you mentioned earlier, 68-43. And Carterville, of course, was just beat this afternoon by Westland, 44-26. And games from earlier in the afternoon session, it was Olney over Roxana, 61-44. It was DuQuoin knocking off Jerseyville, 49-42. Kind of surprised by that score.
Yeah, I think everybody was surprised. I talked to the play-by-play announcer for DuQuoin after that game. He said, this could be a game that jumpstarts our season because we weren't expected to win this. So they got a big win against Jerseyville. Now, if Carterville wins this game, they would play Jerseyville tomorrow morning at 10:30. And then depending on what Carterville does in that game, they would either play at 4 or 5:30 tomorrow. And as I said after the Westland game, Dave, there's still a lot of positives that can come out of this tournament for Carterville. Honestly, Carterville, even though they've got one win on the season, Carterville could come out of this thing 3-1, with a win here tonight and 2 tomorrow. So this is a big weekend for the Lions heading back into conference play next weekend.
What turned out to be a very entertaining game to watch. We watched the tail end of it. It was the Benton Rangers knocking off Cissna Park. 34-33 was the final there. That was a good game to watch. And we played Cissna Park a year ago in this tournament. They weren't quite as good as they are now, but Benton gets the big win. And Benton, don't forget, was beat by Pinckneyville in the championship game a year ago.
Yeah, I'm sure Pinckneyville would like to get a rematch with Benton. I don't know if that's going to happen. Benton is still a good team, but they're not as good as they were last year. Cissna Park, I kind of felt sorry for them last year. We talked to some of their people, and, they were a young team last year. It's a small community, but they played well against Benton, and I really thought had the game won going into the fourth quarter. But there's been some blowouts, as there will always be in these type of tournaments. But Carterville, they just need a win in the worst way. It doesn't matter who they play. They just need to get that second win of the season.
I agree. This Lions broadcast is brought to you by the Bank of Carbondale's Carterville Banking Center, where they offer the convenience of mobile banking. Stay connected and on the go with the Bank of Carbondale's mobile banking app. You can learn more. Visit their website. That's tboc.com. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Don't forget, this Trico school was the very first high school coaching job for Shane Hawkins coming out of college. He went on to, of course, Marion prior to coming to the Carterville Lions, so he's very familiar with the school. I'm sure things have changed and the players have changed, but there's got to be some emotional value to this game for Shane Hawkins.
Well, he had a couple of very good teams at Trico while he was there, which, Shane Hawkins was a very good high school player, very good college player, and he's a very good high school coach. It's just things aren't going right for him right now.
We are just a couple of minutes away from the start of this basketball game. We moved our location down to the floor. If you tried watching our YouTube live stream in the first game, just had all sorts of problems with it. And so we moved down, and hopefully this is going to hold better. But if you'd like to watch the game, go to YouTube, search Trico Pioneers versus Carterville Lions, and you can watch and listen to the broadcast. We're going to go on. Let's hold on just a second here and see what they're going to do, as both teams have headed to the bench. And we'll get into our starting lineup for Coach Andrew Wilson of the Trico Pioneers and Coach Shane Hawkins of the Carterville Lions, as we are waiting on the officials and the PA staff to get things going here. No matter what the situation and no matter the outcome of this game, we can tell you that Carterville will be playing tomorrow morning at 10:30 here on NewsRadio WJPF. The only thing to be determined is the opponent.
Yeah, 10:30. I guess if Carterville lost, they'd be playing at 9 in the morning. I think that's the other thing.
Yes, you're right.
I think a 9 o'clock game if Carterville loses. And we were talking before the broadcast that this is a very pivotal game for So it's going to be 10:30 either way.
Yeah, it would be 10:30 either way. It just depends on the gym.
Well, that's good for us.
Yeah.
But this is a very pivotal game for Carterville because, they obviously, with only one win, there's not a lot of confidence right now. And if you were to lose to a Black Diamond team like Trico, a much smaller school, your season kind of hangs in the balance as far as where are these kids going to go from there. Are they going to still, go out and play hard or what have you? So I think this is a very important game, if for no other reason, mentally for the Lions.
I think the delay we're experiencing right now, I was looking around and was only seeing 2 officials on the floor. For high school games, typically there are 3 for the varsity games, and one official goes over to say hello to Coach Shane Hawkins. I saw the other official, he had ran out toward their locker room, and he comes back in now. And
I think they're just telling both coaches, hey, there's only 2